Okay, Year 11, this is your second revision task to revise the causes of the Cold War and the Cold War in Asia. And this, of course, is all about President Truman and his reaction to the Cold War. And this helps us to explain why Truman decides to get involved in Korea. So let's head on with it, shall we? Truman had an iron fist approach to communism. He hated communism and was absolutely determined to stop it. And he was determined to contain communism and trying to stop it spreading across the world. So remember, what happened was communism has spread all across Eastern Europe, and he was terrified that this was a threat to freedom. That freedom theme coming back yet again. The Truman Doctrine committed the USA to help any groups of people resist the spread of communism. So essentially what Truman promised as President of the United States was that any groups of people in a country, be it in Europe or later Asia, who were trying to resist the spread of communism, America would provide money and weapons in order to try and stop the spread of communism, in order to help them to fight against communism. Truman backed Chiang Kai-shek and his Chinese nationalists against Mao Zedong's communists in the Chinese Civil War. So what you've got Mao on the one hand, a communist, fighting against Chiang Kai-shek, a nationalist on the other. And Truman provided weapons, money and ammunition to Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists, even though they were a little bit dodgy, to try and stop communism from spreading into China. However, Chiang was unpopular with the Chinese and failed to win the war despite US support. The famous saying, it was like pouring sand down the rat hole. You can pour the sand down the rat hole, but you're not going to get rid of the rats. The rat's just going to dig it out and run off again. You're not solving the problem. Truman, however, was haunted by the experience of China, and he needed to prove he could still be tough against communism, against Korea. There was intense pressure on Truman in order to look tough against communism at a time when his political opponents were trying to accuse him of being soft on communism. Not a good look in the United States, particularly in the 1950s. So our task now is to complete the mind map below to show Truman's attitude towards communism, right? So with our red pen, you're going to have already done this, of course, and this is what we're going to think about. So the first thing we talk about is the iron fist. So Truman hated communism and was determined to stop it. Okay, remember, freedom. I'm putting that in capital letters. Why? Because it's really important. Remember, communism is a threat to freedom. Yeah? The second thing is all about containment. So what's this all about? Truman was going to provide weapons and money to groups resisting communism. Right? And that's what he ends up doing in China. Okay? So he backed Chiang Kai-shek. However, who was of course a communist. However, didn't go particularly well. Failed to stop communism. And that was in 1949. China communist. And that haunted Truman. And what did he have to do? He had to prove himself in Korea. So there was a checklist down here. I'm just going to zoom this out. Apologies for the noise. So that's our diagram, all completed to all intents and purposes. So we've got the iron fist there. That's up here. We've got containment, which is down here. We've got the failure in China. But what I have just missed is I haven't put in the Truman Doctrine. So that's what this is. Okay. So money and weapons, that is the Truman Doctrine. And we're about to see Truman put his Truman Doctrine into practice in Korea. But first of all, we've got to find out what happened to Korea after the Second World War. And that's what we're going to do in the next video. So, see you in a bit.